Thank you everyone for joining us. I'm going to make a brief introduction here, and then I'm going to leave the conversation and leave Anwar and all of you successful women to it. So I've known Anwar, so we both went to Carnegie Mellon undergrad, and I've known Anwar since then. And you know how sometimes in life, like people end up doing things and you just are not surprised at all. Like the person in your class who was sharp and always arguing, they end up being a trial attorney. The person that was the math whiz that ends up going to become a physicist, astrophysicist. So when Anwar made the announcement that he was going into coaching and helping women find their perfect guy, I wasn't surprised at all, because he was that guy on campus. He was the guy on campus who got along with everyone, can go in and out of different environments, played basketball and hung out with the guys who were playing basketball, was into fashion, was also technically inclined. So literally, everything you could think of, Anwar was strong in it, and was able to just fit in with different types of people. And for him to now be the guy whisperer is not a surprise at all to me. So when we had a conversation with Anwar maybe a few weeks ago about doing something together, he also was he stressed the fact that he had results, so he wasn't out here and making introductions and bringing on people as coaching clients without being able to deliver results. So he got into and quantified his results, which I found impressive, because to be honest, I was a little hesitant as to his success, but he has success and has helped many women find love and find the right mate for them. So with that, I'm going to say thank you to everyone for attending tonight. And Camila, Anwar, I'll leave you to it.
Awesome. Thank you, Keith.
Keith, thanks for that great introduction. I appreciate it. And it's so great to know that you have 100% confidence in me and my skills.
100%.
At all times.
All times. All right. See you.
Awesome. Bye, Keith.
Bye.
So thank you for joining us, Anwar. So I'm sure people are asking, why is Grid 202 doing a session about dating and successful women, right? Number one, we have a lot of successful women as clients and as prospects, so we think it's important that we have a venue for this conversation. But Anwar, you know this, is that it's always better to reach your goals together, whether they be financial and personal. And as holistic planners, we're here not to only ensure that you reach your financial goals, which can be retirement, building up your war chest, education planning, estate planning, whatever it may be. But we want to ensure that you're also reaching your personal goals as well. And you have someone that can help you reach them together. So that's why we asked Anwar to be here. This is a really important topic. I have a lot of single girlfriends. I'll share, I'm newly single myself. So I'm going to be taking copious notes as we engage in this evening. And Anwar is going to spend some time just talking about how dating is different for an older woman. We're still young at heart and young in our appearances, but we're a little bit wiser in how we should approach dating. So Anwar, if you can spend some time just sharing a little bit more about what you do and how you help successful women date.
Yeah, of course, of course. First, thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here. And I always love talking to smart and successful women. That's one of the reasons I work with them, because they're focused, right? They want to achieve their goals. And so I'm working with someone who wants to be potentially coachable, right? So it's always a pleasure to work with smart and successful women. Like Keith was saying, my name is Anwar White. I am the founder and creator of Get Your Guy Coaching. And one of the things that we really focus on is making sure that smart and successful women have a strategic plan on how they're going to find love, right? So you're not just kind of happenstancing cute rom-com meetups with men. That's really not how reality happens, especially now with so many online apps and globalization. You need to be much more strategic in the way that you look for and find love and how you actually participate in it. And so just a little bit about how I got started. I went to business school a long time ago, and I would catch up with all of my friends my smart and successful girlfriends, and they were still looking for love. And they were having a lot of difficulty. And me being the type A kind of person that I am, I told my girlfriends, I would say, okay, well, I'm going to help you make this happen, right? I'm going to take over your love life for a hot second, right? So, it meant talking through whatever was holding them back internally, right? As well as making sure that how they're representing themselves, not just like with online dating, with amazing profile pictures, with an amazing profile that stands out and that is not super bland, as well as how to really approach the first date so that it's amazing and you get a variety of second, third, and subsequent dates, right? So that you can actually be in a place to actually have an exclusive, committed relationship, which for most of the women that I talk to is their desired outcome. This work is really personal to me. My grandmother was married 3 times. My mother was married 3 times. My sister just got divorced and with my help got remarried, right? So specifically with Black women, sometimes it can be a little bit harder to really find that forever plus one. And so I wanted to mention that because this is something that's personal to me and my heart, and it's a huge passion of mine, just to empower women, but specifically Black women. Keith was talking about my stats. Roughly 92% of women that I work with get into healthy relationships, exclusive relationships within 3 to 6 months after working with me. And then around 2/3 of women are engaged within 2 years. So I'm happy about that. And I'm excited with the women that I work with that are really, really ready to take this plunge and really focus on it the way that they probably focus on their careers, because it needs to be a priority if that's something that you really want to do.
Awesome. And I can't wait for you to elaborate a little bit more, Anwar, on healthy, right? I think that's a really important part of that statement you had with healthy, exclusive, long-lasting relationships. So those are the key words that I just heard just now. So when a woman is single, and I'm gonna use myself as a guinea pig here, Anwar, right?
Okay.
Do is you say, all right, I'm single. What am I looking for? And then you do the list, right? You write your list down of all the things you want, right? And I've been teased about my list, Anwar, like, oh, you're too specific, and like he must be 6'2", or all that good stuff, right? So can you elaborate on the list that we should be, or should we have a list or not have a list? What is your guide for successful women?
Yeah, so what I generally find with my clients is that they have a list, and usually it looks really good on paper, right? That list generally happens and is created when they're teenagers in high school, and they haven't necessarily upgraded that list to be in their grown woman status. So one of the things that I like to do with clients is really focus on just stepping back, right? I'm a numbers guy. Like I went to Carnegie Mellon, like Keith said, and I majored in statistics. And so I'm a numbers guy. So for the women that I talk to, right, they're saying, I want a guy with a graduate degree. Okay. Well, only 13% of guys have graduate degrees. I want a guy that's 6 feet tall or taller. Okay. That's only 15% of guys out there, right? The average height is 5'9". I want a guy that makes 6 figures. Okay. That guy, there's only 9% of that guy, right? And if we're thinking about men that are 30 to 50 years old, it's only 40% of men, right? So if you do the math, that's 0.7% of men that you're actually looking for. So when you tell me, based on your list, that you're having a hard time finding these men, I believe it because it's less than 0.1%. And that's not even taking into consideration that 0.07% is going to be feeling you, right? So I want us to really think about this list in a completely different way, right? And I have a ton of exercises in my program in terms of how we do this. But generally, what I want my clients to really focus on is the number one thing is, how does he treat you, right? Does he treat you like a queen, right? Because I want you dating not for now. I want you dating 10 years from now and 40 years from now when you're retired. Because when you're retired, it's not going to matter if he has a 6-pack. His height is not going to matter at all. Does he take care of you? Does he listen to you? Is he honest? Is he considerate? Is he kind? So I always say, like, we just really need to break it down to like 3 to 5 must-haves, right? And those should really be focused on kind of how he really treats you, right? I have an acronym HOP, right? Honest, open-minded, considerate, and kind. If he kind of checks those off, give him a chance and date him a little bit, right? Again, honest, open-minded, considerate, and kind. People sometimes ask me, well, why does he need to be super open-minded? Because when you guys are going through conflict, you want him to be able to have an open mind to understand your perspective, right? And you don't want to be fighting and butting heads with somebody that's not going to be able to be listening to you and what you have to say. Okay, I hope that helps kind of clarify like the list, because I think it's something that really kind of hinders a lot of women from love. And what I've also learned is that I've been doing this for a while now, and as cliche as it sounds, love comes in a variety of different forms and packages. And the person, the man that you think that you're going to be with, or the idea of that man, is going to be probably completely different. I'm not going to say it's always the case, but I'm going to say, you know, I have women that say, oh, I would have never married a guy who didn't go to college, right? But yeah, he didn't go to college because he got a skill doing plumbing, and now he owns his own multi-million-dollar plumbing service around, you know, Los Angeles, right? So really thinking about that list in a completely different way is going to be so important. And I just want to kind of add on to that, because I want to give all of your clients and prospective clients a lot of clarity here. The way that I also think about that is, think about your list. It can be 20 different things, 100 different things. Your potential mate will probably check off 13 of those things, right? And that should be okay. What I want you to really focus on is what you really liked and you didn't like about your exes, right? Because we don't really think about that. We just think about what we want on this ideal list, but we don't think about doing a deep dive into our past relationships to understand, actually, you know what? I really like that he would take me on surprise vacations, right? Oh, I actually didn't like the fact that he had a great job, but it meant he had to work 100 hours a week, so I never got to see him, right? So really thinking about it in real time about what you really want and don't want is going to be really important. Another thing that I found in terms of really focusing on what to look for, because it's going to be different for every woman, is that you've got to, and I don't want to get all, you know, psychological here, but you've got to really step back and think about your relationship with your parents and what need has not still been fulfilled within that relationship, because that's what you're looking for in your relationships, and that's what's going to make you feel safe in home. So for me personally, right, I had a father that abandoned me when I was quite young. So for me, someone who was reliable and always there for me meant the world. So when I had somebody that was calling me every day, and when I called them, they called me back, it was everything, right? But that's going to be different for every individual. So that's something that you want to think about on a personal level, so that you're realizing that, okay, and that should be kind of your major thing, because that's the thing that's going to make you feel safe and whole. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So when you think about when we're looking, oftentimes we look for a clone. We look for someone like us, but a male version of Camila, right? You know, similar. And for some of my friends on that probably sounds very scary, right? But we look for a male version of ourselves because we look for people that align with our value systems, our wants, our needs, our ambition. Can you share with us, like, what are the positives or negatives of finding someone that's very similar to you? And what mistakes do you see women make when they do that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's something that is so hard for smart and successful women, right? Because they work so hard and they're on their game, and they want somebody that is working just as hard and that's on their game as well. Everyone lives their life completely differently. And unfortunately, men don't date like that. Men are not dating for their clones, right? You're dating for your clone potentially. A lot of my clients do, but that's not how men do, right? The way that men date is they're focused on women that, and I have another acronym, right? That gas them up, right? That make them feel good, right? That make them feel accepted, and that make them feel strong, right? Gassing them up. So that's why when you see women that haven't accomplished half of the things that maybe you have or other your strong friends have done, they're making that man feel good, accepted, and strong. And that is really what the men are focused on. And I don't write the rules of the game. That's just how the game is written. Right? So that's what I tell a lot of my clients, because I think it's really important to really understand kind of this game of love and how relationships are actually formed. I think that men want to be impressed by their women, by the women that they date and that they eventually marry. But whether you got a graduate degree or not is not going to necessarily, like, those kinds of accomplishments actually don't really impress them. Like, you know, I think it's great. I think men will obviously acknowledge it and think, wow, okay, that's great. But it's not like okay, now I have to get to know her. Those things are not a huge priority for men. In general, right? Everything that I say today is going to be in general. Obviously, take the 80-20 rule for everything that I say. But I think that hurts a lot of women that I talk to, because they're looking for the guy that went to business school just like they did, the guy that works in finance or consulting or is a lawyer just like they are. And men don't want that, because in general, men go to work all day and work with people that are just like him. Right? If he's a lawyer, he's working around all lawyers, and when he comes home, he wants something different. He wants
right? He wants an escape from that conversation, that lawyer talk, right?
And he just wants variety, like all of us do, right? If he's doing something all day, he doesn't want to have to do the same thing all night, or it feels like he's at work all the time, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why this huge kind of difference, and I talk a lot about masculine and feminine energy and stuff like that, is so important, and to be able to step into that so that you can give him a different flavor of what his everyday looks like, because that's where he's going to feel safe, and that's where he's going to feel at home and not at work.
Yeah, because before, like, masculine and feminine energy, right? And I know for a lot of the women on this call, you know, we are the boss. We're the boss at work, right? We tell people what to do. We run things. We manage budgets. We manage funds. We manage projects. And then, to your point, how do you come into your home and then take that away? And then, you know, put the gas hat on and making sure that your man feels good, accepted, and strong. So what are your thoughts on how women, like, how do we make that transition for a successful relationship?
So, if you talk to dating coaches and relationship coaches, they're going to have a variety of different ways that they think about it. I want to empower the women that I work with. And so I don't ever want women to feel like they have to be something, right? If you are comfortable in your dominant masculine energy and you want to run things and you want to boss things at home, do it, girl. Do it, right? But don't expect to be with a masculine man. And the majority of men are masculine, because they're going to either be emasculated by that, right? Or they're going to want to compete, and you guys are going to be bumping heads, right? So understand that if you stay in your masculine, then you're going to have to be looking for a different kind of man if you want the relationship to work, right? Someone that might be a little bit more cultured, a little bit more chill, right? Maybe introverted or shy. Like, just think of like engineering types. So when I think of like, you know, a masculine energy, dominant masculine energy, I think of Serena Williams. And she is married to the co-founder of Reddit, Alexis Ohanian. Super chill, super great guy, but she runs things, right? And she just stays in who she is. And I think that's great. On the other side, when we're thinking about like feminine energy, right? I think of like a Meghan Markle, right? Princess. And how you never really hear her talk a lot, but she actually runs everything through her dominant feminine energy. I mean, she got the prince to leave his family and leave the country for her and what she wanted to do, right? And it's all about, there are 3 different levels of feminine energy that I'll talk about a little bit. So the lowest, I say, is that feminine energy where sometimes women feel like they have to lose all of their boundaries and just kind of submit to men, and then they get clingy and naggy and they want to mother men and stuff like that. And guys are super turned off by that, and that's not hot and sexy, and they'll take advantage of you because you let them, right? And I think a lot of women actually fall into that, unfortunately. And then I have kind of the middle tier, right? Which is the, I don't need a man, I'm super independent, I can do everything by myself, right? Which is a lot of different bosses out there, because they are generally doing things all by themselves for the most part. And I want to say specifically to women of color and Black women, this is even more prevalent because unfortunately, sometimes that's had to be the case. And the things that you've seen, right? Single Black mothers and things like that, that has been your role model. So that is what you see. So that is what you know, right? For a lot of women, Black women growing up. And so unfortunately, what happens is that if you can do everything by yourself, then there's no space for a man to actually be able to do anything for you. So then the man doesn't feel like he's needed. And ultimately, men just want to please the women that they love, right? They want to adore her, they want to cherish her. And so if you're not giving them the opportunity to do that, then they're gonna just find someone who will. And then this third kind of feminine energy that girl has, that gets all the guys that are sprung on her, is that she knows that she can do everything on her own, right? But she lets him do things for her, right? So that she has a little bit less off her plate, but also he feels like he's contributing to her and he's pleasing her, right? That's the yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine working at its best, right? So, and I say this because a lot of my smart and successful clients have a really hard problem asking for help or letting people do things for them, because that's kind of a sign of weakness, right? If you're thinking about being in the office, right, you want to do all the work because you want people to see you and value you, right? And I think that really drives a lot of success career-wise and even life-wise, right? If you say, okay, I am going to run a marathon and I run a marathon and I'm amazing, right? That's great, without anybody's help. But that's why the smart and successful women have sometimes trouble finding a exclusive, committed relationship with men, because they're not able to let that masculine energy really do what it wants to do. So just to kind of step back a bit, because I've talked a little bit about masculine and feminine energy, I want to talk about what that really is, because sometimes there's a little bit of confusion about that. So masculine energy is really driven by the action, right? If you're a boss woman like you are, you already know this, right? Everything is about doing. So it's about thinking, right? Instead of feeling. It's like, I want, I produce, I perform, I problem solve, I give or provide. And oftentimes, a lot of women, what I see is that they're giving, thinking that they're being feminine and nurturing, but giving is actually a masculine trait as well. So when you're giving, you actually don't give a lot of space for the man to give, right? Now, I want to kind of clarify that. Masculine energy should be giving first, and you should be giving in return. But I don't really recommend women to really give first, because then you're not giving the man an opportunity to really kind of be chivalrous in a way. And a lot of men want to save the day, right? They want to be the superhero. The feminine is driven by feeling, right? About relationships. I feel. The power of the feminine energy is really being able to accept and reject anything that the masculine energy gives. And that's where the true power is, right? Because men can do and say and whatever they want to do, and your power is to say, I accept that or I reject it, right? And it's so powerful. And I say this to say, men get rejected a lot, so they're actually more sensitive than we think that they are. And so, especially nowadays, a lot of men are not really in real life coming to women and trying to approach them and pick them up. One, because a lot of women are rejecting more so. And then now, because of the Me Too movement, there's a little bit more of a sensitivity around that. So I always recommend for my clients to really do a lot of their work online. Obviously, offline is great too, but it can't be your sole way of trying to find a man, because there are a lot of things that are preventing that from happening as much as it was even 10 years ago.
So part of it is, I think for women, and I'll speak for myself and others, it's hard to be vulnerable though, right? So even the men are scared of being rejected, and women are scared of repeating past relationships, right? And repeating the hurt they experienced, and that creates that wall, right? So and I know so we want to be open and receiving of men that, have interest in us and just have that dialogue, but how do we remove that wall?
So that takes work, right? That takes true healing. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't really know how to heal on themselves. I mean, you'll probably hear a lot of different people saying, I'm working on myself, I'm working on myself. A lot of people just don't really know how to do that. And instead, actually, what they do is they either just make themselves really busy, right? They lean into work, or which doesn't you and everybody else, right? Or they'll just avoid, or they'll do what I call short-term kind of relieving experiences, which are, I'm going to shop, I'm going to eat, I'm going to go out, right? Just to avoid the actual healing. If you really are interested in the healing work, and that's part of my program too, it's actually at the very beginning, because you have to heal from all of your past relationships, and even you have to go back to childhood, right? Especially as Black girls growing up, there's probably a lot going on that hasn't been processed yet. And so we go through that because it's so important to be very clear about that, and be able to be okay with your past and accept it and accept the players in it, right? I think another important piece, I'm not going to go through the actual exercises, but an important piece is to realize that the last guy isn't this guy. So to actually kind of treat him as such is unfair, both for you and for him, right? And so every new person is a completely new slate, and oftentimes, women will have that wall up of vulnerability, and being in your feminine is about vulnerability. It's about being open to be able to accept or reject. So if you are a woman that is choosing her dominant feminine energy in her romantic relationships, vulnerability is going to be so important and so key. Unfortunately, oftentimes what I do see is women that are, let's say, too vulnerable or too hot, right? So they're overly sexy and sexual, and then, which means that they have no vulnerability walls, right? And then men have no respect for them and will do whatever they want. Or, which is more the case for the women that I work with, that they're too cold, right? So the walls are super, super high, and it's like business-like. So if you're ever on a date and you're asking him questions like it's an interview, there's probably 90% of the chance you're probably not going to have a second date, right? The walls are too high, and for good guys, they don't want to have to prove themselves because they just live their life and they're not trying to do too much or too little. They're just being them, right? Because they're confident in who they are. So if you have these walls and you're expecting all of these men to jump over them just so that you can trust them, that's not a recipe for success, unfortunately, right? You have to be open to each and every guy, right? Especially when you're dating, because oftentimes, right, that first date actually doesn't really mean a lot because you're nervous and he's nervous, so you're not really getting to know each other. I generally tell my clients that you'll get to see who that guy really is by date 3, right? So the guys that you're like, I guess, okay, maybe give him another chance, right? Give him a second date, because between date 2 and 3, He doesn't feel rejected, right? He feels like, okay, I'm going on another date, so I have more confidence, and so that I feel more confident to actually show who I am, right? And so you get to know who this person is, and not just does he have brothers and sisters, where he went to school, and X, Y, and Z, right? So when I'm talking about vulnerability, and I just want to clarify this, it doesn't mean that you're telling your ghosts or your secrets or anything like that, right? It's not about being too hot and about being too cold. It's about just being warm, right? It's about smiling and asking questions and having fun and joking and having some wine and chilling out, right? I always say this, and it sounds so weird, but I think when women actually start to date, they start to get it. I say, when like you're hanging out with your grandmother and she's telling a story, and the way that you're looking at her, right? That it's just this warm feeling of just pure acceptance of love. That kind of vulnerability is what I'm talking about, right? Because that is the kind of essence that men are going to feel, and they're going to feel gassed up, right? They're going to feel good, accepted, strong, right? They have your attention, that you're commanding it. So that's what I have on vulnerability.
Yeah. And for the ladies, we have a Q&A on the Zoom on the bottom of the page, I believe. So please start sending your questions in. We're going to get to the Q&A part in one moment. So to your point earlier of, that second or third date, and what we're gauging often is compatibility, right? Are you compatible? Versus when you first meet them, it's the chemistry, right? Like, I think we all, I love a good rom-com, Anwar, right? I love a good J-Lo movie, and I want my shoe to like drop in the middle of the street, and then
No, girl.
Pediatrician comes up.
Oh, girl.
And then we're dating forever, we get married, right? So can you share, how should we rethink this whole compatibility versus chemistry when we're dating?
Yeah, I think that you're not alone when you say that, right? I think that women are brought up to believe that if they do have butterflies, then that's a really great sign. I would actually challenge that and say, if you feel 100% comfortable with this man, you're not going to feel butterflies, because it's going to be so natural, and you shouldn't feel that way. So this chemistry thing I want to debunk, because chemistry actually leaves a relationship between in months 18 to 24. So after that, if chemistry was everything that you guys were hoping for, it's out. And then you got to figure out if you actually like this person, right? And like, you can deal with them if you're compatible, if you want the same things, if you live the same way, right? If you have the same hours, right? If you want to build together, which for my clients is one of the most important things. Obviously with your business, it's about building and creating those sorts of that wealth, and also generational wealth, right? So understanding what that looks like, and if your dreams are aligned, right? And what sorts of steps that looks like for each person. Because there are women that say, I want children right now. And there are men that say, actually, I want to really buy that second house, or I want to buy a house right now, and I need a couple more years to make that happen, or whatever it may be. So, but it's important to realize that you should want the same things in similar orders, or have a man that's open-minded enough to want to have the same order that you have, right? In terms of compatibility, if you have a 9 on a scale from 0 to 10, and this guy is a 9 on compatibility, but like a 6 in chemistry, you're good, because chemistry will grow, right? Once you start to like this person and live for him, and the vibe is great, that chemistry goes. That's why sometimes you'll see, like, quote unquote, really attractive women with these guys that are kind of just average, right? Because that chemistry has actually grown in a way that they both think that they are like the sexiest thing in this world, right? And so I think it's important to realize that if chemistry is everything that you're feeling, then you should go on more dates to figure out if it's just chemistry or if it's something more. And also, if chemistry is everything that you're feeling, it's actually affecting the way that you think critically about some of these guys. So for some of the women that are on the call that have had really bad relationships, I want you to think back on when you first met the guy. And if it was mostly chemistry that made you kind of lose your head, and allow him to do things that from a head perspective, you would never allow anyone else to do. But because you have these butterflies, and because you kind of, because you were focused on the chemistry part, you allow your boundaries to get a little bit flexible and loose, right? And so that's why I'm saying, like, I'm not saying chemistry is nothing. What I am saying, though, is that I want you to prioritize compatibility more than you were doing in the past, right? In a way that it's on par or a little bit more, especially when you're first getting to know, the guy that you're talking to, right? But it doesn't also mean like asking him this slew of questions like you're on an interview. I think I just want to kind of talk a little bit about that too, because a lot of my smart and successful women, when they're dating on those first dates, it becomes so businesslike and it's such a turnoff. And when you're asking these questions, right? Like I was saying before, well, let me just step back and say, men see potential in women within the first 5 minutes, right? So they're gonna know, am I gonna give this woman the time of day? Like, is she potentially a woman that I would wanna marry or not, right? By date 3, he's starting to show himself a little bit. It isn't until date 6 or 8 that he's gonna feel like he wants to really move forward in a significant way. And I say this because I think it's so important. Women will, and this is generally speaking, but I think I've spoken with thousands of women, so I'm pretty sure on this. They're marrying him on the first date in their head, right? And he's so far off from that, right? And but I'm saying we're doing this because of the chemistry and not necessarily, maybe it's a mix of compatibility and chemistry, but because the chemistry is not helping us think critically. And for my boss women out there, their head is the thing that got them to where they are. And so it's important to keep your head in these situations in terms of, is this man going to be a great father to my children, right? In terms of like thinking about compatibility and the life that you want to lead, not now, 5, 10 years from now, right? 20 years from now. Am I going to retire with him in Miami, right? Or Florida, right? Would I be able to stand him, right? And in those kinds of ways, right? So that's what I'm talking about when I want women to really prioritize compatibility over chemistry.
Got it.
Is that clear?
It's crystal clear. And I am reading some things right now, Anwar, in terms of previous dates I've had before. So we've gotten some questions, and I'm going to selfishly on first, right? Okay. So for those women that are jumping into the dating scene after divorce, how do you get started? And then, should you really start online first? Like, do you encourage them to get their feet wet and just go out and be social, or do you just say go right to Bumble or Match or whatever online dating site you prefer?
The first thing I say that, because divorce is very hard and it's not something that you just come back like a month or 2 months or 6 months from. Sometimes it's different for every woman, right? And I think sometimes more so it's harder on the women than the men, depending on the situation. But so I would tell those women to really take your time, because you have to heal from that. And if you have to mourn the death of the relationship and the marriage, and that's very hard to do because you're also mourning all of the dreams and the future that you envisioned with that person, right? Everything was pretty much set, right? It was like Bible, right? And you knew what the chapters were going to be, and you have to allow yourself, one, to feel that, one, to be okay and sit in that place, but also mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually detach from the identity of being a married woman. And that takes time, right? It's not something that you're just going to, I'm just gonna be dating now because I wanna forget him. That's a recipe for disaster, because you haven't healed. And so any of the mistakes that you have, when you go in to dating as a wounded woman, you're actually gonna be wounded even more, because you don't have the protections, the confidence, the security, right? The trust in oneself and also in men to be able to date like a boss woman, right? To really stand in your power. So that would be the first thing that I would say before even stepping foot into the scene. Make sure you have that. And I know that we haven't talked about this a lot, but if that means going to therapy, that means going to therapy or counseling, or, you know, dating and a relationship coach. I'm not a therapist. I'm just a dating and relationship coach. So that's my focus. But we do some of that work because I have been certified in it. But if that's something that's necessary, I think that's really important. And I know I'm taking a lot of time on that, but if you're coming into the game not ready to go, you're going to fail. So be ready, be ready, be ready, be ready. So when you are ready, right? I think you should do both. I think that you should be online and you should be offline. So what does that mean? So let's start with offline. Offline means that you're gonna have to do things differently than you did before. So oftentimes, the women that I work with, they do the same thing every day, right? They go to work in the same way. They come home, they watch the same shows, they eat the same meals, right? Discipline is something that is important to them because that's how they were able to rise up in the ranks, right? You're gonna have to change the way that you do things. I want you going to work in different ways, right? Even if they're not the most, the quickest way to get there. I want you going to different restaurants. I always tell my clients the acronym SHE, right? SHE, S as in social, right? What are you doing socially once a week? With your girlfriends, right? With your family, whatever it may be. H, health. What are you doing to make sure that your health is legit, right? Are you going to the gym? Are you swimming? Are you on the golf course, right? Are you bowling? Whatever it may be. E, education. How are you growing yourself, right? Those are the things that are going to be important because you need to have a full life so that you're not focused on, one person to be your be all end all and you have your eggs. I mean, you all know about diversification, so I don't have to tell you once or twice. But I say that to say that also that's going to help you gain your confidence when you're doing all of these different things, especially as a divorcee, so that you can really focus in on you and what makes you great, right? So doing those things. And then offline, I'm just saying for women that are like 40 and over, actually more sporting places are better, not bars or anything like that, but golf, country clubs, working out, right? For men that are older, it's actually really important that the women kind of quote unquote don't let themselves go. So even just doing that, right, and being active in that way, not only will make you feel good and give you the endorphins and everything like that, but it signals to a man that you respect yourself and you value yourself in all areas. And so online, I'm a huge fan of Match. Match, I think men are more, and this is for women that really are looking for something that's committed. A lot of women have come to me and said, because they're more, religious based, I want to do eHarmony. For women of color, eHarmony is actually not great. So I want to say that. Bumble, I think is really good if you're going to stay in your dominant masculine energy, right? Because Bumble's initial brand is that basically the women make the first move. So a man that is going to go on Bumble is going to be okay with that happening and being kind of in his beta or in his more feminine energy. So if you want to stay in your masculine energy, I would say do Bumble. I think Hinge is okay. But I don't think it's great for women that are like over 35 or 40 or something like that. It's well, let's say over 40. And I think it tends to be better for Caucasian women. So, but I'm a huge proponent of Match. So, and then also don't be afraid to talk to your friends and let them know, hey, I'm ready to get back out there, right? Find a guy that's wonderful for me, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes I tell my clients, I want you to send 10 postcards out, right? With an amazing new photo of yourself to let people know that you're new, you're improved, you're yourself, you have a new identity, right? To all of your friends, let them know what you've been doing. And then also say, hey, I'm actually ready to date. So if you know someone, tell someone, right? So that, exactly. So that you can have a variety of different kinds of interests coming in, because, you know, I think friends are also a really great avenue to find quality men, right? Without having to kind of go through all the profiles or have to reject guys that are coming up to you in real life. Yeah, those kinds of things. I hope that answers your question.
And so we've got quite a few. So
Uh-oh,
it seems
okay.
is about intimacy, right?
Yeah.
Um, you know, and I remember we had this discussion, Anwar, right? Women want to slow down, men want to speed up. And
Right.
I feel that sometimes when we're a woman of a certain age, that it's like, oh, are we going to wait? You know, are we waiting 5 dates? Are we waiting a year? Like, but if you do too soon, you know, will he respect me? If I wait too long, will he become disinterested? How do you coach women on the right time to be intimate, but also not, and our issue is not waiting too long that we feel like we wasted our time if the intimacy is not meeting our expectation?
Good question. So I tell my clients that I think it's very important to be intimate with men when you are in a committed relationship. Not because I'm old fashioned, but because I think it's important for men to realize that you're not giving this away to everybody, right? Because that's how they think, right? Oh, okay, she's gonna sleep with me. She's probably sleeping with a ton of other people. And men want to put women on a pedestal, right? They're gonna be with you because they want to get classed up. So to signal that, you want to say, and they can be, you know, kind of pressuring you. Oh, I want to be with you. Oh my God, you're so sexy. And it's as simple as saying, oh my God, I think you're really hot too, and you're really turning me on. But I really just do that with a boyfriend, right? No pressure. This isn't about whatever it is. I'm just saying that that's something that I do with a boyfriend that I have been in an exclusive relationship with, right? And so then the onus is on him to figure out if he wants to be your boyfriend or not, right? Instead of playing this middle game that a lot of women actually get caught up in, right? About, does he like me? What are we? Whatever. If he's showing up, he's into you. And the guys that are continue to show effort and continue to reach out to you are the guys that are not going to care about waiting or not. Now, am I saying that I want you to be a complete prude and give him nothing? No, right? I'm saying that I think that the sexual act should be something that that you should wait on until an exclusive relationship. But I do think like kissing and doing other things, massages and things like that, you go and let them know that this is something that you're interested in and that you really like, but you're just not going to go all the way with him on that. I also want to say that women get chemically attached to men when they have sex with them, right? So it's really important that the men that you have sex with, that's why like sometimes, and I'm not going to call anyone out, I'm just going to say clients, you had sex with a guy and then you're sprung and you can't get him out of your head and you continue to think about him because there's something chemically that happens when you have sex with a man. So I always tell my clients to just wait until an exclusive relationship so that you've already seen that he's for you, right? And that he's showing up for you so that you can be chemically bonded to somebody that's looking out for you, that wants to cherish you, adore you, and wants to please you.
Mm-hmm. All right, a couple more here if we can get to them. So one of the things we talked about is we're in the middle of a pandemic. We have stay-at-home orders, we're phase 1, phase 2. Is this the right time to engage with someone when you maybe can't see them for a couple of weeks because you're quarantining?
It's the perfect time. It is the absolute perfect time. And I know that people are gonna like gag on that, but I say that because it's one of those things where men are having existential crises about their life and what they want it to look like, right? They can only play video games for so long until they're, lonely. They're thinking about, I don't want to die in this house all alone. I want to be with somebody, right? And they're horny, right? So they're really going to be thinking about I want to be with someone. I want connection. I want touch. I want a lot of different things. And so it's the perfect time to be out there because they're more open to relationships and quicker to really connect to that than they've ever been, I think, since we've all been alive, to be honest with you. And so this is the perfect time to really be out there and talking to guys and seeing where they're at, and also just the nature of courtship, right? Like I think you were mentioning before, guys look for sex and fall in love. Women are looking for love and have sex along the way, right? And so because of this distance, you actually cut out sex out of the equation, and you have an opportunity to actually get to know each other and understand that compatibility factor in a way that is so different than the physicality of it all, right? Which, you know, you see a guy and he's vibing and you're vibing, and there's just this thing where it gets a little cloudy. So this is the perfect time to really get to know guys as much as possible. And I just want to say really quickly on this, I want you all to be dating multiple guys at the same time. It is so important. I always tell my clients, I want you dating 3 guys at the same time. I call it Olympic dating. You have a gold medalist, a silver medalist, and a bronze medalist. Why do I say this? I think that there's been some societal expectations about what that looks like for a woman. I think those things are slowly starting to change. And some of my clients have a problem with that. And some of the clients that you have may feel like, that might not be for me. I'm old fashioned. Here's the thing. Back in the day, they didn't have online dating, right? So your pool is so much greater than it was before. And not everyone is going to be for you. I always tell my clients, 9 out of 10 guys are probably not going to be the one, but 1 out of 10 of them is probably going to be the one, right? So you have to get to that one by dating multiple people. And also, as you know, diversification is key in your portfolio, right? It's always important. When you have just one, if you have an Apple stock and it tanks one day, you're SOL, right? You're out of luck. And so you want to diversify, because so if Brad is not calling you back or not doing what he needs to do, then you go with Colin, right? And you go with Ryan, and you still live your life and do you, right? And so that's how you make dating work for you. That's how you become the chooser and not the chosen. And that's about you stepping into your power as a boss woman in dating.
Awesome. So trying to pick what question to ask here. Do have a few more here. So sometimes men intentionally want a boss, right? They look for a boss. And one of the things that someone asked is, what are the new rules? Like, should the man, pay for the first date? At what point do we as women, because there's equity in terms of maybe how much we're both making. It isn't like, I'm 18 and he's 25 and he should take care of everything. What are the rules in terms of women who have that financial security, and how should we engage during that dating process?
So I think it's important for you to always give him a little fake check, like you're about to take the check, but you don't, right? And see what he says. If he says, no, I got it, great. If he doesn't, then again, you've observed something and you're taking a mental note. That can go into, okay, do I really want a man that's going to be doing that or not? Again, that goes back to your masculine and feminine energy. If you're going to step into your dominant feminine energy, that's probably something that you don't want, right? If you're comfortable being in your dominant masculine energy, going halfsies is not an issue, right? So there aren't rules. You make the rules, right? And it depends on who you are and how you're dating in terms of if that's going to be acceptable or not. For the 80% of the women that I work with that are going to step into their feminine energy, that are choosing to do that, then that would be kind of a negative to me. He should be paying.
Awesome. And last question, and we can get to the other ones later, perhaps, and follow up, Anwar. So some women have been rejected by men a lot, right? That they're very vulnerable, they're afraid. What advice do you give them? You share with men, they have that fear. How do women overcome that rejection to get back in the game and with confidence and find the right one?
Yeah. So I think it's important to realize that people are selfish beings and they're going to do things for them and not for other people. And so if you're personalizing, that's why I always give numbers, right? 9 out of 10 men are not going to be for you. If you know the numbers before you go into the game, then you realize it's part of the game and it's part of the numbers, and it's not about you, right? You're 8, you're not 1, and that's okay. Right? It's a numbers game. So you can't make these things about you, because most oftentimes it's really not. And oftentimes it's really guys that are just like not really ready to like settle down anyway. So you probably dodged a bullet. So it's really about reframing what the situation is so that it serves you, right? A lot of women, get into a victim mode, and I'm so not about that, right? I want you to stand in your power. So we have to reframe the way that you're thinking about things in a way that actually serves you. And if the guy is not calling you back or doesn't want to be with you, then you have saved yourself heartache and years of a guy that probably wasn't 100% feeling you anyway. So you wouldn't want to be with him ideally, right? I mean, I want us to be thinking in realistic terms here and not thinking like in a dream. So I guess my advice would be, don't really make it about you, because it's really never, ever about you.
Awesome. So you have dropped some gems this past hour. And
I've tried, girl. I've tried.
And we would love to know, how do we work with you, Anwar? If we're ready for that coach, someone who can help us, with our walls and help us have a more open-minded perspective in dating, how do we engage you?
Yeah, no problem. So you can always send me an email at anwar@getyourguycoaching.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Get Your Guy Coaching. And then I also have a Facebook group, Get Your Guy Coaching. So those are 3 ways that you can get in contact with me. What we'll first do is we'll get on a call. It's a free consultation where we talk about everything that's going on with you, right? I want to know your past, your present, and what you want in your future, and how we can help you actually achieve your desired outcome or goal, right? We'll also talk about the things that are hindering you from finding love, and it's going to be different for every woman. I mean, I've talked in generality here, but everyone is going through their own love journey. So on that consultation call, you'll be able to actually really figure out what that is for you. That's something, if you go to my website, getyourguycoaching.com, you'll find the consultation tab there that you can book a consultation. But yeah, I mean, it's really a conversation to really serve and help you like I've done today. And, it's really no pressure. I'm actually booked until mid-July. So I don't have any availability right now, but in July I will have maybe 1 or 2 more spots. I generally work with women for about 6 months, just because every woman is different, and sometimes the healing work takes longer or not. So I want to make sure that you have a lot of guys that you're talking to, that you're dating, and that you actually find attractive and really like. So I think that 6 months, and I found that 6 months is a really great time to actually accomplish those things.
Awesome. And so for those that attended today, we will of course send you a follow-up email with Anwar's contact information, and maybe you can get in his slots, in the 1 or 2 slots available in July. I know I'm intrigued. So thank you, Anwar, so much for your time this evening. Really appreciate it. My phone is blowing up right now of friends that are attending this and really enjoying the session. And we hope that all of you on this call, if you are single, that this was helpful as you get back in the game and date, and gives you some nice, new, fresh perspective. So thank you for joining this evening, and I hope to talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Bye.